Did you know that 78% of CDL students quit their training program before completion? Not because they lack the physical ability to drive a truck, but because they can't handle the mental pressure of constant criticism and failure. Meanwhile, the 22% who make it through share one critical trait that has nothing to do with driving skill and everything to do with how they perceive setbacks. But here's what's fascinating. This same mental framework separates successful professional drivers from those who burn out after a few years on the road. What if I told you that Marcus Aurelius, who never drove anything more complex than a horse-drawn chariot, wrote the exact mental framework that both CDL students and veteran drivers use to thrive in this demanding industry? This isn't motivational fluff about positive thinking. This is battle-tested philosophy from a man who governed 65 million people while fighting wars on multiple fronts, dealing with plague, political betrayal, and personal tragedy. Marcus understood that reality isn't what happens to you, it's how you interpret what happens to you. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Take Shelley Simpson, who started as an hourly customer service worker at J.B. Hunt and rose to become Fortune 500 CEO. She faced criticism, setbacks, and self-doubt. What made her different was her discipline of perception. Every CDL student faces parallel parking failures, pre-trip inspection mistakes, backing disasters, and demanding instructors. Every professional driver faces equipment failures, difficult shippers, impossible deadlines, and challenging regulations. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit isn't talent or natural ability. It's their discipline of perception, their ability to see obstacles as training opportunities rather than evidence of inadequacy. Whether you're in CDL school or you've been driving for 20 years, this mental framework will determine your success and satisfaction in trucking. In the next 18 minutes, you'll discover the exact framework Marcus Aurelius used to transform obstacles into opportunities, whether you're facing your first day of CDL training or your 1000th day behind the wheel. We'll explore the 3 levels of perception that determine whether you see a failed backing maneuver as proof you're not cut out for trucking or as valuable feedback that's making you better. For professional drivers, this same framework helps you handle equipment failures, difficult customers, and industry changes with grace and resilience. You'll learn the instructor interpretation method that turns harsh criticism into accelerated learning, and how experienced drivers use this approach to extract value from dispatchers, safety managers, and DOT inspectors. We'll dive deep into the failure reframing protocol that successful drivers use to bounce back from mistakes faster and stronger than before. You'll discover the daily reflection practice that builds mental toughness during training and throughout your driving career. We'll follow Shelley Simpson's journey from hourly worker to CEO, showing how the same mental tools that help you pass CDL training can take you to the highest levels of the trucking industry. By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete system for managing the psychological challenges of trucking, whether you're just starting out or looking to reignite your passion for the profession. Most importantly, you'll understand that every challenge you face is actually building the mental skills that separate great drivers from those who just survive. Meet Tommy Rodriguez from Houston, and I'm sharing his story because it perfectly illustrates how perception shapes reality in CDL training. Tommy enrolled in a 3-week intensive CDL program after losing his job in the oil industry. At 32, he'd never driven anything larger than a pickup truck, but he figured driving was driving, and how hard could it be? His first day behind the wheel of a Freightliner Cascadia was a reality check that nearly ended his trucking dreams before they started. The instructor, a 30-year veteran named Big Jim, had Tommy attempt a simple straight-line backing maneuver in the practice yard. Tommy confidently put the truck in reverse, started backing up, and within 10 seconds had the trailer jackknifed at a 45-degree angle. Big Jim calmly walked over, knocked on the door and said, "Son, that's the worst backing I've seen in 20 years of teaching. You just failed what should be the easiest maneuver in trucking." Tommy's initial reaction was pure frustration and embarrassment. His mind immediately went to negative self-talk. Maybe I'm too old for this. Maybe I don't have the coordination. Maybe I should just quit and find another job. But here's where Tommy's story gets interesting. Instead of accepting these thoughts as truth, he remembered something his grandfather had told him years earlier. The same hammer that shatters glass forges steel. Tommy realized that Big Jim's harsh criticism wasn't personal attack, it was professional assessment. The instructor wasn't trying to humiliate him, he was showing Tommy exactly what needed improvement. According to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, only 22% of CDL students successfully complete their training and maintain employment in trucking for more than 1 year. But here's what's even more telling. 68% of professional drivers report feeling burned out and considering leaving the industry within 5 years. The primary reason in both cases isn't physical inability or lack of mechanical aptitude. It's mental and emotional overwhelm. CDL instructors are notoriously tough because they're preparing future drivers for an industry where mistakes can be literally fatal. The same mental pressure that overwhelms CDL students also overwhelms experienced drivers when they face DOT inspections, equipment failures, and impossible delivery schedules. Professional drivers know this reality. You've dealt with dispatchers who seem unreasonable, shippers who blame you for delays beyond your control, and mechanics who question your competence. But here's the problem. Most people in trucking, whether students or veterans, interpret this tough environment as evidence that they're failing rather than evidence that they're learning. They see correction as rejection, criticism as condemnation, and challenge as proof of inadequacy. This misinterpretation creates a downward spiral of self-doubt that becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. Students who perceive their struggles as normal parts of the learning process persist and eventually succeed. Professional drivers who perceive industry challenges as opportunities to grow become the ones who thrive while others burn out. The perception of these challenges is what separates those who succeed from those who quit. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." This principle, known as the discipline of perception, teaches us that events themselves are neutral. It's our interpretation of events that creates our emotional response and determines our actions. When your CDL instructor criticizes your shifting technique, that's just information. When a professional driver's load gets rejected at the receiver, that's just information. The emotional response comes from what we make these events mean. When a CDL student interprets criticism as, "I'm terrible at this and will never succeed," they've added meaning that wasn't inherent in the original event. When an experienced driver interprets a load rejection as, "This company doesn't respect professional drivers," they've done the same thing. But when both interpret these situations as opportunities to improve their skills and professionalism, they create completely different outcomes. This is exactly how Shelley Simpson approached every challenge in her rise through the trucking industry. When faced with skepticism about her capabilities, she didn't interpret it as evidence that she didn't belong. She saw it as information about what she needed to prove through her performance. Marcus faced far greater challenges than anything we encounter in trucking. He dealt with political enemies, military generals who questioned his decisions, and advisors who thought he was making mistakes. But he maintained his effectiveness by practicing disciplined perception. He wrote, "Today I escaped anxiety, or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside." This is the key insight for everyone in trucking. The stress, frustration, and self-doubt you experience aren't caused by external events. They're caused by your interpretation of those events. When you fail a parallel parking attempt, when your truck breaks down, when a shipper treats you disrespectfully, the negative emotions come from your thoughts about these situations, not the situations themselves. Here's how to apply Marcus's discipline of perception, whether you're in CDL training or driving professionally. First, separate facts from interpretations. When your instructor says you need to work on your backing, that's a fact. When a DOT inspector finds a violation, that's a fact. When you think "I'm terrible at this," or "this inspector has it out for me," those are interpretations. Practice catching yourself adding negative meanings to neutral events. Second, use the "what would a skilled driver think" filter. Experienced truckers know that everyone struggles with backing initially. They know that repetition builds competence and that criticism is professional development, not personal attack. Third, implement the obstacle as opportunity reframe. Every mistake in training prevents a more costly mistake on the road. Every equipment failure teaches you about mechanical systems. Every difficult customer builds your communication skills. Fourth, practice the long-term perspective shift. CDL training is 3 to 6 weeks that provide decades of career opportunity. A breakdown in Nebraska is a temporary delay in a career that spans years. This is precisely how Shelley Simpson transformed her career trajectory. Starting as an hourly customer service worker, she could have interpreted every challenge as evidence that she didn't belong in trucking leadership. Instead, she saw each obstacle as preparation for greater responsibility. When colleagues questioned her decisions, she focused on results rather than reactions. When industry changes threatened established practices, she saw opportunities for innovation. This mindset carried her from the bottom of the corporate ladder to the CEO suite. Tommy used these same principles to transform his CDL training experience. When Big Jim criticized his backing technique, Tommy learned to think, "My instructor is showing me exactly what I need to practice." When you're dealing with a difficult shipper, think, "This is building my professional communication skills." Let me share case studies that demonstrate these principles for both new and experienced drivers. First, there's Maria Santos from Phoenix, a former restaurant manager who struggled with confidence during her CDL training. Maria's instructor was particularly demanding about pre-trip inspections, requiring her to recite every step perfectly. Instead of seeing this as harassment, Maria used the discipline of perception to understand that thoroughness during pre-trip inspections could prevent roadside breakdowns costing thousands in repairs and lost time. Today, Maria has been accident-free for 3 years and uses this same mindset to handle DOT inspections, equipment issues, and customer complaints. Second, consider how Shelley Simpson's journey demonstrates these principles at every level. Starting as an hourly customer service worker, she could have interpreted her position as a dead-end job. Instead, she saw it as an opportunity to learn J.B. Hunt's business from the ground up. When colleagues questioned her abilities or dismissed her ideas, she focused on what she could control: her performance, her knowledge, and her relationships. When she faced industry skepticism about women in trucking leadership, she didn't interpret it as evidence that she didn't belong. She saw it as information about what she needed to prove through excellence. This same discipline of perception carried her through every promotion and challenge until she became CEO of one of America's largest transportation companies. Third, there's veteran driver James Thompson from Atlanta, who after 15 years behind the wheel was considering leaving trucking due to burnout. Instead of seeing regulations, difficult customers, and equipment problems as reasons to quit, James used the discipline of perception to understand that these challenges were opportunities to demonstrate his professionalism. He developed better sleep hygiene, improved his customer service skills, and learned to see every problem as a chance to prove his value. James now trains new drivers and credits his renewed passion for trucking to changing his perception. The advanced application of disciplined perception extends throughout your entire trucking career, whether you're just starting or have decades of experience. Marcus wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." This means you can't control what challenges you'll face, but you can control how you respond to them. As a professional driver, you'll encounter difficult shippers, unrealistic dispatchers, equipment failures, weather delays, and regulatory challenges. Your ability to perceive these obstacles as normal parts of the job rather than personal attacks will determine your stress level and career longevity. Develop the habit of asking yourself, "What is this situation teaching me?" When you're stuck in traffic, instead of getting frustrated, use the time to practice patience and observation skills. When you encounter a difficult shipper, instead of taking it personally, recognize it as an opportunity to practice professionalism. When your truck breaks down, instead of seeing it as a disaster, view it as a chance to learn about mechanical systems. This isn't naive optimism, it's practical wisdom that will serve you throughout your career. The best truckers aren't those who never face challenges. They're those who have learned to extract value from every challenge they encounter. Whether you're in CDL school or you've been driving for 20 years, start building this mindset now, and you'll have a massive advantage over those who never learned to manage their perceptions. Create a daily reflection practice where you review the day's challenges and identify what each situation taught you. This simple habit will transform your relationship with difficulty and accelerate your professional development. Tommy's transformation was remarkable. By the end of his 3-week CDL program, he had gone from the student who couldn't back in a straight line to one of the top performers in his class. More importantly, he had developed the mental framework that would serve him throughout his career. Today, Tommy owns 3 trucks and employs 2 other drivers. But Tommy's story pales in comparison to Shelley Simpson's ultimate transformation. From that hourly customer service position, she applied these same Stoic principles through every challenge, every promotion, and every industry change. When the trucking industry faced economic downturns, she saw opportunities for innovation. When technology threatened traditional practices, she saw chances to improve efficiency. When competitors questioned her strategies, she focused on results rather than reactions. Today, as CEO of JB Hunt, she oversees a $12 billion company and continues to apply the same mental frameworks that helped her survive her first day on the job. Her journey proves that these principles work at every level of the trucking industry. Here are your specific action steps for applying these principles. First, create a facts versus interpretations journal. Every day, write down what actually happened versus what you made it mean. This works for failed backing attempts and equipment failures alike. Second, develop 3 positive interpretations for every negative event. When something challenging happens, force yourself to find 3 different ways to perceive it as beneficial. Third, practice the future self perspective. Before reacting to criticism or setbacks, ask yourself, how will my future successful self view this situation? Fourth, implement the instructor as coach mindset. Remember that criticism from trainers, dispatchers, and safety managers is designed to prepare you for real-world challenges. The discipline of perception isn't just about getting through CDL training, it's about developing the mental resilience that separates professional drivers from those who wash out of the industry. Next week, we'll explore how to handle your first day behind the wheel as a newly licensed driver, using Epictetus's teachings about controlling your fear and managing anxiety in high-pressure situations. Here's your 7-day challenge to master the discipline of perception, whether you're in CDL training or driving professionally. Each morning before your training session or pre-trip inspection, spend 5 minutes writing down 3 things you're grateful for about your trucking opportunity. This practice primes your mind to look for positive aspects rather than focusing on difficulties. During your day, catch yourself whenever you add negative interpretation to neutral events. When your instructor provides correction, or when a dispatcher assigns a difficult load, immediately reframe it as valuable professional development rather than personal criticism. When you make mistakes or encounter obstacles, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Rather than, why can't I get this right? At the end of each day, write down 3 specific things you learned and how each lesson will help you become a better professional driver. This isn't busy work, it's mental training that will serve you throughout your career. Both Tommy and Shelley Simpson started with this same practice of daily reflection and disciplined perception. Tommy used it to transform from a struggling CDL student to a successful owner-operator. Shelley used it to rise from hourly worker to Fortune 500 CEO. The same principles that help you pass your CDL test will help you thrive in every aspect of your trucking career. If this episode helped you understand that your perception of challenges determines your experience more than the challenges themselves, subscribe to this channel because we're building a community of drivers who understand that mental toughness is just as important as driving skill. Drop a comment and tell me about your biggest challenge in trucking, whether it's CDL training, equipment problems, or difficult customers. What situation pushed you to your limits, and how did you handle it? Your story might help another driver who's facing similar struggles. Remember, the trucking industry needs skilled, resilient professionals who can handle challenges with grace and grow stronger from every difficulty. The discipline of perception isn't just philosophy. It's the practical mental skill that will determine whether you thrive or merely survive in this demanding profession. Thanks for staying with us, and see you in the next episode.